offside. One down. Here's Sims. It's a good serve this from Southampton. They could finish the job here. It's Shane Long, and he has done it. Just a minute to play. That's stoppage time. Here's Letizia.
Well, hello and welcome to the Saints FC podcast. I am John Bailey and I'm here tonight with Mr. Tom Parker. Tom, how are you?
Good, John. Good. A lot of football this week. A lot going on this week, but good, yeah. Excited.
Yeah, and you finally, made it back from the toilet, having left before Che Adams' goal, which we managed to capture on the BT. Let's start with this, Tom, because I think this is quite funny. So today, Saints played Bournemouth, and the BT got in contact with me. I've done some kind of little videos for BT before last season, and they're like, "Oh, could you or anyone else go and be part of that BT fan park?" Which you took them up on, as did my brother and my dad. Yeah. And I was looking out for you. I saw you celebrating Danny Ings' first goal, and then at the end of the game, Che Adams scores a goal, and there's this wall of Saints fans celebrating. I see my dad and my brother in the bottom left corner going crazy, and then there's this kind of living room that I recognise in South London, but nobody there. Tom, what happened? Where were you?
So I not only missed. I missed the VAR decision on the Bournemouth goal, and then I missed the Che Adams goal. We had my daughter Beatrice, who is otherwise absolutely charming. Anyone who's got kids, and John, obviously you've got 2 kids, will know that kids are basically work on very fine timelines, don't they? And basically, if you mess around with those timelines, John, my God. And Beatrice, that game also today went on for forever, not as long as the FA Cup game Man United, but it seemed to go on for a long time. And basically, I was in Beatrice's allotted walking/nap time, and that is something I pledged my wife I would do. So, I stepped up and missed arguably the most exciting 3 minutes of the season.
Oh dear, Tom.
Sort of, but,
Yeah, if you are looking for an excuse for a late goal, Che Adams' goal against Bournemouth is the latest goal since 2012, I think, when Yakubu scored for Blackburn Rovers in the 98th plus something minute. So there you go. It was certainly a late goal. Tom, we have got 4 Saints games to talk about in this episode because we didn't manage to kind of get ourselves together last week. So we've got four games to go. Unlike Southampton, normally if you're talking about 4 games, you'd expect there'd be a dreadful performance or a dreadful loss in there, but that's not the case. We've got nothing but wins and draws to talk about, so that's pretty good. We'll get onto that in a moment, but we had a lovely message on the YouTube, on the Ugly Inside YouTube channel, where all of our podcasts are published as well. So Freddie puts them up there, from a chap called Christian. And he says, "Guys, as always, a real pleasure to listen to. After having listened to at least 2/3 of your episodes, I consider you both friends of mine. Let's have a pint next time I go to St Mary's if you're there too. I'm there once or twice per season. Last time was with my 3 sons against Wolves. Best wishes from Christian, who lives in Copenhagen, Denmark. He's a GP and a former club doctor for a full-time professional team, presumably in Denmark, and a Saints supporter since 1979. So, Christian, hello. I didn't even know that you existed before you put this comment on, but now I consider you a friend. And absolutely, next time we're allowed at St Mary's, if you and me and Tom are going to the same game, let's absolutely have a pint. That'd be lovely.
That would be good.
Yeah.
It'd be cheaper than going for a pint in Copenhagen, that's for sure.
Yeah, that is true. Although, Copenhagen's a nice place. Maybe, who knows, maybe at the end of next season, Tom, we might be talking about European football and we could get a trip to FC Copenhagen. That would be good fun, wouldn't it?
That'd be the dream, John. The absolute
dream. Listeners, you'll have to excuse this sort of optimism. It's not, it's not normal for us, is it, Tom? So I mean, let's go back to the start.
Some dark days.
Yeah, let's go back to the start. So the last time we spoke, Saints had just beaten Premier League champions of last season, Manchester City, in a game where Che scored a wonderful goal from miles out, and we held on with some fantastic last-ditch defending, and we're singing the praises of Jan Bednarek and Jack Stevens and Che Adams and all of that, and Ralph Hasenhüttl for the tactics being spot on. We were really looking forward to the game against Everton at Goodison Park. We did talk about the juju of like the hoodoo, whatever you call it, the magic, the spell. There's something that hangs over Goodison Park. Yeah, some witchcraft, which means that Saints can't win there. And it proved the same again, because somehow we came away with a draw despite absolutely battering them in the first half. And James Ward-Prowse missed a penalty, went skying off the kind of crossbar. Danny Ings got a great goal, but we were kind of undone by one of those long crossfield balls. I mean, Tom, what did you make of this game?
Well, it's probably best 45 minutes of Ralph ball. I thought the first half was just fantastic, wasn't it? We flew into Everton, who looked really poor, and you can see why they want Højbjerg. And if anyone wants more information on why they want Højbjerg, there's a really good article on The Athletic today about what the sort of gap in their team they think Højbjerg would fill. But yeah, it was brilliant from Saints in that first half, and they tore into them. I mean, it did have that feeling of we need almost like today's game where we don't feel comfortable unless we're probably at least 2 goals up. But it was a really strong performance. I think helped by some slightly odd refereeing. I don't think it was a penalty. I think it was a bit weak penalty. But the first half, John, we flew at them, didn't we?
I mean, it was amazing. You could tell the Saints players were buzzing from having beaten Man City the game before, and they're playing with incredible confidence, and their kind of close control, the quick passing, the movement up front, which normally is something that we can struggle with a bit, I think, in terms of looking really threatening going forward. But we look really amazing, and it was a surprise that it actually took as long as it did to get that goal, really. And
it was a strange goal, John.
It was a strange goal. I think I remember the commentators saying that they thought that Stuart Armstrong was having a shot, which I'm not convinced
surely was,
by.
Wasn't he?
Do you think
it was a pass?
I thought it was a pass. I thought it was a really good disguised pass.
I don't know. For me, he kind of sliced across
you think it was like
which was surprising.
You just think it was a dreadful...
Yeah, but it's dreadful. But what, like, brilliant reactions from Danny Ings.
Yeah.
Yeah, like twinkle toes to get it out of his feet, get it round the sort of despairing Pickford. It was a weird goal, but if you think about it, like Danny Ings is great, and we'll talk no doubt about him a lot. But doesn't he score like all sorts of goals?
Yeah, he does. I mean, that one was kind of like a scrappy, odd. What I think Ings has is he has this ability to think faster than it. Like his brain and his feet seem to have like a pretty good, pretty quick connection. Because that goal was an example of whoever reacts fastest to this is going to get the goal, or the save, or whatever it was. And he did really well to take it around kind of Pickford and get it.
But this anticipation it's like what Ings seems to be very good at is thinking this could, what can happen? What are the possible scenarios that can happen right now? And I'm not saying he thought that the cross, the ball would be sliced to him, but like he obviously was ready. He was obviously totally ready for that ball.
Yeah.
No matter which way it came to him. But yeah, brilliant 45 minutes. Shame about Ward-Prowse missing that penalty though.
Yeah.
Very strange.
He looked like, I was chatting to my dad, I think, throughout this one, and I was kind of telling my dad about that statistic of, players who win a penalty are less likely to score it than someone else. So if you're the person being fouled, you're less likely to score the penalty than if someone else kind of steps up and takes it. And I mentioned that to my dad, and then obviously James Ward-Prowse kind of then missed the spot kick. I think we'll get onto spot kicks as well a little bit later on.
There's another penalty thing. to talk about. I heard another one of those similar stats today, which is very interesting if true.
Okay. And Jordan Pickford had one of those kind of games where, I mean, he made that save from Danny Ings' header, which I don't know how he kind of kept out. And, I mean, it seems so long ago now. Did Che Adams also have a goal disallowed for offside?
Yeah. No. Armstrong had a goal disallowed.
Armstrong had a goal disallowed for offside.
Very early on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, first half, John, amazing. But, we got outdone, didn't we, by that ball.
Yeah. I mean, that long crossfield ball is the thing that really cost us against, that game that we shouldn't talk about much, but we're always going to come back to. But, we just...
It cost us against Burnley. It's a ball that we struggle to deal with, isn't it? Like, all throughout the season, we struggle to deal with those sort of rake high balls into the box. Now what you going to do?
There we go. Referee had like an odd performance, I think. We got a penalty, which probably shouldn't have been a penalty. Jan Bednarek could have been sent off, wasn't sent off. I think Everton could have had a player sent off. I think Richarlison really should have been sent off, probably.
I don't think Bednarek should have been. I thought it was a brilliant tackle.
Yeah.
It confused me because I thought Bednarek's tackle was brilliant because I thought if it was a foul, and this was the weird thing about it, like if it was a foul and the referee gave the foul, why didn't he send him off? Tom,
I think you're talking about a different Bednarek tackle. Aren't you talking about the Bednarek tackle against Brighton now?
Oh, maybe I am.
Yeah, I think you've lost the plot, Tom.
Oh, I'm getting confused. It's been a very long week.
So much football to catch up with.
So much I can't work it out anymore.
Yeah. Right. So let's move on to game at Old Trafford. Manchester United, the in-form side of post-lockdown Premier League football. And we need to talk about this as well because I haven't got the kind of full league table of post-lockdown because the one that was published earlier hasn't had Saints results added to it. But I've got the last 6 games. Manchester United 1-5 draw, obviously the draw was against Southampton. Storming the post-lockdown league. Southampton in 5th in the kind of form table of the last 6 games. And you knew it was going to be an exciting game, and so it proved, really, because we were pretty good, I thought. Right from the off, we were at them. This is a Man United that before that had won 3 games in a row by 3 clear goals, scored 5 against Bournemouth, and were absolutely going great guns. And we were doing really fantastic pressing again. And Saints got a lead, I think, after about 11 minutes through Stuart Armstrong. But really, I think we have to talk about that man, Danny Ings, again, Tom. Can you remember this goal now?
It was the perfect Ralph goal, wasn't it? Yeah, I do. I remember this. I'm not getting to that. Yeah, it was a perfect Ralph goal, wasn't it? I think if you imagine if you're Ralph and you set your team up and you instill in them a philosophy, if you could craft a goal which perfectly embodies that philosophy, it would be that goal. It was, Pogba is a fascinating creature because I was at Wembley as you were, John, for the League Cup final a few years back, and Pogba that day got bossed by Romeo, and so that's the only time I've ever seen him play. And I'm just, we're not here to talk about him, but he's just so soft, so casual on the ball, and you can just see again, it's similar to what we did against Man City. It's obviously just win this ball high up the pitch. But what's amazing is opposition is still letting us do it, and you just think the player was quality, but it was a brilliant goal, and about it was selfish play by Danny Ings to lay the ball off to Nathan Redmond. Redmond picks out a perfect cross to Stuart Armstrong, who's playing this kind of like weird false number 10 role, isn't he, for Saints? This sort of like right wing / second striker role. And he's got a habit of scoring against Man United. Didn't he score against Man United a couple of seasons ago? I think he did in Mark Hughes' in the game we drew 2-2 where Cedric scored a free kick. I think that was Armstrong, but it was a brilliant goal. And again, this is Ralph ball. It's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said it's like heavy metal football, and he's totally right. It's thrilling to watch.
Well, I mean, this is the thing as well. So I'm going to go back to your point about Pogba being baffling, because that like heavy metal football was that a Ralph quote, or was that kind of like a
That's what Solskjaer said.
Yeah. like Solskjaer clearly knew about Southampton's game plan. He knew that they were going to press. And so he must have told Pogba, yes, Southampton, they're going to block off the channels to go down, the wings. So they're going to hope that you're going to pick up the ball and then they're going to press you and try and tackle you. And we did it, that wasn't the only time. We nearly caught him out again shortly.
Yeah, Che Adams caught him, didn't he?
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. Lovely little pass from Ings to Redmond, who I thought his cross was just perfect, wasn't it? Perfectly weighted to Stuart Armstrong, who had so much time. He could take a touch and then slot it past De Gea. And the coolness of Stuart Armstrong I want to talk about as well, because, Tom, if I'm getting that chance, 6 yards out at Old Trafford to score against Man United, my heart is going to be like going like the clappers. I'm going to be so nervous, but not Stuart Armstrong, coolest man in the world. Yeah. Takes it, controls it, puts it in. And it felt like a deserved lead at the time. And it was just kind of a shame what happened from the 20th minute through to the 23rd minute, when suddenly we were kind of undone by some brilliant play by Marshall, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the guy seems unplayable, doesn't he? I think it was interesting. I think I still think the first goal was a very weak goal for Saints to concede. Yeah, Martial's play in holding off Stevens and Bednarek and laying the ball off to Rashford, he finished, incredibly well across McCarthy. Yeah, it was great, but I just still felt Saints should have got hold of Wan-Bissaka before that. I don't know if you remember, John, and Wan-Bissaka was just able to sort of use his incredibly long legs to sort of just weave in and out and avoid about 3 tackles. And it's one of those things where you were just surprised one of the Saints players didn't take one of our famous tactical fouls.
Yeah.
And it was really good by Marshall, and it's a great finish by Rashford, but you just kind of felt the ball should never have been there. Someone should have dealt with that.
I mean, especially Bertrand as well, who's really savvy enough, I think, to not let Wan-Bissaka get past him.
Yeah, I think, because I just don't think it would have been a booking, because it was kind of nothing happening. But yeah, I didn't. I mean, but then this is the difference, John. I mean, the Saints are playing unbelievably well, and we're all thrilled with it. But we do have players that, and I think Nathan Redmond brings so much to the team, but he is clearly low on confidence. And today's game, I think, showed that, and I think that's the difference, isn't it, between like a Man United. There's many differences between Man United and Southampton. Southampton have got Danny Ings, who will bang in all the goals, and a few other players. Man United have got the front 3 plus Fernandes. They've got they've got half a team that's going to turn it on in any one game.
Yeah.
And that they've just got this embarrassment of riches.
I mean, that was the kind of phrase that I was thinking about there. But it's funny what you're saying about Nathan Redmond, because I get it. I get what you're saying about him seemingly kind of missing bits of confidence. But he's now got 3 assists in 3 games.
Yeah. I mean,
he's still getting
involved. He's a funny player, isn't he? Well, I love him. I wouldn't drop him. And I think he's a much better player than Buffon in terms of impact, and I think he's a better player right now than Gineppo is. So I think he's nailed on for the team. Don't get me wrong. I think Saints would be mad to drop him.
I wonder if with Nathan Redmond, almost the problem is that you've got players like when Redmond was playing really well last season, and the whole rest of the Saints team weren't. He looked leagues above everyone else. And now you've got Danny Ings looking so good, and you've got Kyle Walker-Peters who's starting to look really good. Stuart Armstrong's looking really good. Che Adams, Shane Long, Obafemi are all doing really good jobs, whoever's kind of partnering Danny Ings, that suddenly he's no longer the star of the show, is he? Because everyone else around him has kind of stepped up a level, and he doesn't look quite as as hot as he used to. But I still think he's kind of performing he's still doing kind of Nathan Redmond-y things of taking it around people, getting crosses in, creating chances. It's just, I think as we're creating more and more chances, perhaps he seems a little bit more low on confidence or not performing quite as well, just because everyone else is performing quite well around him.
Yeah, I think he's obviously, and also he's a very confident, and it sounds like a silly thing today, but just by watching him, you think he looks like a very confident based footballer. I mean, I know they all are. I guess all strikers are, but like when you watch him in a game up close, I think he's actually calmed it a little bit. But do you remember, John, when he used to go to St Mary's and you'd hear him like screaming at teammates? And he's very emotional. He's very passionate. And I think he's actually learned to control that a little bit. But I don't know. I mean, he's doing a great job. And at the end of the day, he's part of a team that's now 6 unbeaten, and he'd be mad to break it up. I just think if you just introduce goals into his game, which is obviously the hardest thing to do in football, Redmond could be a world beater, couldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely space for him to be even better, and he is already good. What do you make of the rest of the game then? Because after the 23rd minute, I actually felt like Southampton. I mean, both teams had chances. McCarthy made some pretty good saves, but Saints had some pretty good chances as well, and we did trouble them a bit. And I felt that when we're going into the 90th minutes and all the kind of added on time that we're having, I felt like Saints were very much the stronger side, and I was kind of looking for us to get that kind of victory, or not victory, but that equaliser, which did come in the end.
I think it was well deserved. I mean, I think we were clearly. I mean, Man United did a thing that a Ferguson team probably wouldn't have done, which is they didn't look to kill Saints, did they? I mean, whether it's tiredness or a bit of arrogance, and I thought Harry Maguire's interview, I think at the end of the game, probably makes me think it was arrogance, where they felt like a boxer, who knows he's already winning on points. They just thought they had to kind of keep Saints away rather than try and knock us out. And I think, I mean, look, we had, over the course of the game, we had more possession than them. And I think, Ralph is absolutely right. We lost our heads we forgot what we were doing. We forgot what we were all about for 10 minutes. And they scored twice in that 10 minutes. But if you take that out of the game, Saints were well in it. And I think there's so much to enjoy about Ralph. And I think, we are like, we obviously love him. I think it's, getting probably a bit much. But he's certainly my favourite Saints manager for to be honest, probably as anyone really, because I think he's passionate. He's not disconnected. He's clearly so passionate. But what a great thing to do in a game that doesn't mean anything to Saints. And supposedly he takes off the holding midfielder and puts on a young centre forward in the 87th minute to go and get something from the game.
Yeah, I mean, which he then goes on and does, which is just great, isn't it? And I'm going to pick up on that kind of that arrogance from Man United, because you're absolutely right. The whole build-up for the game was all about Man United could go third. Man United are going to end up in the Champions League positions, like Man United this, Man United that, and even as the Saints FC podcast, like our Twitter account was copied into this video preview called United to go third. It's like, I mean, why am I going to be interested in that, Tom? So I retweeted that and I was like, this is Saints' greatest opportunity to go 11th in the table. And it's, it is a bit of a Mickey tape, because they didn't respect us at all. I think Solskjaer does, but definitely the players didn't. Pogba wasn't aware of Danny Ings. Harry Maguire's interview at the end was just, it was beautiful to see. And then, I don't know if you were watching on Sky Sports, but Gary Neville, bloody hell, was he doing my head in throughout the game. It was just Man United this, Man United that, blah, 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 the whole way through.
Wasn't it brilliant when he was like, I'll give it, he's your man of the match, Gary, but I'll give it, to Martial, he's got the match winner.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you talking about?
The game's not over.
Game's not over. And I think and also they weren't like, not only is the game not over, like Man United were under the cosh. What like a kind of silly thing to say. And I thought I think a lot of it summed up by the kind of fake furor for me around the Romeu challenge on Greenwood, which I don't think it was a horrible foul. I think it was Greenwood is incredibly quick. Romeu is not the fastest at the best of times, and I think it was just misjudged. I don't, because the thing is, for Romeu,
he wasn't even looking at Greenwood, was he, Tom? I mean, he was basically trying to turn around, and I think when you looked at it in normal speed and you didn't slow it down, it just looked like he tried to turn around and might have trodden on his toes as he did it.
Yeah, and I think for me, Romeo is really fascinating. He's almost like very old fashioned, like a Jimmy Case style, or Terry Hurlock style player that you don't see many of anymore. But yeah, he gets booked a lot, right? And he commits a lot of fouls. But I don't think he's a malicious player. Like, I don't think he goes in to hurt people. He commits a lot of fouls, but that's his job. Like, he doesn't go to hurt people. And I think that Man United, that whole confection around should Southampton have been down to 10 men is a classic kind of diversionary tactic of don't look at maybe why Man United and why their superstar players didn't put in a full shift. Yeah, and Harry Maguire's interview at the end where he's almost like, I don't understand why. He almost couldn't understand that a team that, in his words, didn't have anything to play for went and did that.
It was so sweet.
Yeah, it's almost like this arrogance of like, well, why aren't you just rolling over in front of us? We're Man United. But all credit to Ralph. Great 87th minute change. Brilliant corner, wasn't it, by Ward-Prowse?
Oh, fantastic.
And a great win from Bednarek. And it just, it felt so good, didn't it? It felt, they've done it to other teams so many times.
Oh,
and was it right, John? It was the latest, and it was the latest goal Man United have conceded since they started recording exact goal times by Opta, which is like in surprisingly late, something like 2011 or something like that. A real one to savour.
Oh, it was an absolute beaut. And, I think Wan-Bissaka put an awful tackle in at the end as well, which, could have quite easily have got a red card for. But, I very rarely get as wound up as Gary Neville managed to wind me up during the course of this game. But I was probably doing Air V signs, Tom, at the television, which were aimed at Gary Neville when Obafemi put it in. And that's the thing. You know what? Like, Saints could have had nothing to play for. I think every team goes to Old Trafford and wants to get a result, don't they? Because it's one of those famous old football grounds where you want, if you beat Man United at Old Trafford, that's something that everyone remembers. Everyone remembers Charlie Austin's debut goal and the winner.
Yeah.
We remember Dusan Tadic scoring there and ripping off his shirt, and we'll remember Obafemi scoring that. I think it's a shame for him that he didn't get to do it in front of 70,000 people, but everyone goes to Old Trafford wanting to get something. But also the fact that they were so arrogant about it made me a lot more fired up, and I'm sure it would have done the same for the Saints players. And it was so sweet when Obafemi scored that goal. I mean, it was just wonderful.
Yeah, and Saints got what they deserved out of the game. Draw was a fair result. Saints had more possession, which doesn't happen. At Old Trafford, the opposition doesn't get more possession than Man United. Saints created some really good chances. Yeah, of course, Bertrand's tackle to prevent Rashford scoring
the last minute off the line,
the last minute sort of toe poke thing. Yeah, of course, but you're always going to get that. It's like against Man City where people said, well, Man City had 26 shots. That's the game they play. There's always going to be it. And you have to figure out a way to beat these teams. Because if you try and do what they do, they'll murder you. And all credit to Ralph because he's just got such a good tactical system. And Man United, they're flying, and all credit to Saints to come away and not, 96 minutes in, for Ward-Prowse to still have the energy to whip that ball in like he did, and Bednarek the presence of mind, and Obafemi to catch a sleeping Lindelof. Oh, it was great, John.
Do you want a little bit more Schadenfreude? When you look at the replay of the Obafemi goal,
oh yeah, this is good,
and Harry Maguire. Who was he marking? Wasn't it Wan-Bissaka?
Harry Maguire takes his own player out of the game, doesn't he?
So Harry Maguire has his hands on the shoulders of Wan-Bissaka and kind of like bundles him out of the way, which leaves Bednarek totally free to get the flick on header to Obafemi. I mean, Harry Maguire's more expensive than Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah, I know football fees are mad, and like talking about football fees are mad, but Harry Maguire, we're not here to talk about opposition players, and we're not here to talk about whether he's worth the money, but he's just so such an odd footballer, isn't he? I mean, he looks like he should have been out of like the Middle Ages and he should be holding a pike and ready to like kill some Frenchmen. But like he takes out Wan-Bissaka right in front of De Gea. It's just such a weird thing to do.
I mean, you'd be devastated if you did that for England, wouldn't you? You'd be so cross.
Yeah, I don't know. Like he's such a like even like, I watched a bit of the Man United Chelsea game earlier today. He's so uncomfortable on the ball. I mean, Van Dijk's the best player I've ever seen play football, full stop. And the idea that Maguire costs more money than Van Dijk is the most insane thing I've ever heard about football.
Right. So anyway, let's move on from Harry Maguire. Let's savour that sweetness of a 96th minute equaliser at Old Trafford. Great stuff from Obafemi. Interesting kind of post-match interview, I think, from Ralph as well. And he certainly kind of hinted at quite a prickly relationship, I think, between him and Obafemi. And he also seemed quite disappointed when, you mentioned that stat earlier that we had 53% possession, more possession than Man United. And, Ralph seemed quite surprised at that and was saying, well, we're getting better at working with the ball as well, when actually we prefer not to have it. So, loads of positives there to take. You then have the next game, Brighton, Hove, Albion at home. I mean, also let's reflect on that, because at the start of this lockdown, when we had our I Don't Know episode where we didn't know the answer to any of the questions, we looked at the those three middle games of Manchester City, Everton, and Man United as like, well, there's the kind of tricky bit in the middle. Let's hope we're safe before those three games come along, because it'd be quite easy to drop points in those three games and then have a lot.
I think we thought we
for.
might get a point. We thought we might get a point, didn't we, from those three games?
And you're coming away with 5 points undefeated. I think it's just absolutely fantastic. And the fact that we were safe before we went into those three games as well. The players are doing that on their own fruition. We can't even really go anywhere in the league now, can we? I mean, we're 11th. We can't go any higher.
We can't go to 10th.
No.
Because of Burnley. But it's about pride, isn't it?
Yeah. So then we have Brighton at home, and then we're into our three fixtures at the end: Brighton, Bournemouth, and Sheffield United. And I think we were eyeing these ones as like, if we need points at the end of the season, these are the ones where we're going to get it. Brighton at home, you're going to hope that Saints are going to win that, especially with the form that we've been in. But Brighton at home just always has the same result, isn't it? It's a score draw every time, and that's what we got.
It was a funny game, wasn't it?
I mean, the first half, I mean, we absolutely rang the changes, didn't we? I mean, there was a lot of changes. Yeah. I think 5 changes.
Lots of young players as well, wasn't it? So what we got? We got Bokins coming in for Bertrand. You got Beatty coming in for Jack Stevens.
In for Stevens, yeah, that's right. Højbjerg playing him right back instead of Kyle Walker-Peters.
I mean, that won't happen again for many reasons, but
Smallbone was in for Armstrong. And Obafemi started instead of Adams, didn't he?
Adams, yeah. Just didn't really work, did it, first half?
No, it really didn't. Højbjerg didn't work at right back at all.
Why, John? Why is he at right back there? And Ward-Prowse, who is not? Is it because when Ward-Prowse was played, that was when we were playing the 5-3-2, and maybe he's more suited than being a traditional right back?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just because Pierre-Emile Højbjerg is down the pecking order, right? So he's like, well, why would James Ward-Prowse is a better right back than Højbjerg, but perhaps he thinks, well, James Ward-Prowse should have his position in his normal part of the team because he's not leaving us in the summer. That was kind of my feeling as why it was Højbjerg. But then why wasn't it Valerie? Or is Valerie injured?
Well, Valerie, I don't know if he was fit, was he? I mean, he was on the bench today. Højbjerg was a disaster at right back because he wasn't a very good. He wasn't really anything, was he? He gave us nothing really going. He was not very good going forward. Didn't really defend particularly well. But I think we just didn't play very well. We kind of forgot ourselves, a bit like the Arsenal game.
Yeah.
But obviously, Brighton aren't as good as Arsenal, and we kind of just forgot what we were all about, I think, in that game. Vestergaard, can we talk about Vestergaard?
Yeah, why not? Let's
We
talk about
allowed to?
Vestergaard.
What a strange footballer Vestergaard is. Yeah, like what a weird beast he is, like a chimera. Like he's huge, but he's terrible in the air. He's massively experienced. You know, he played so many games in the Bundesliga, so highly regarded, but makes sort of really basic mistakes. And for Brighton's goal, you know, he's getting kind of out-thought and out-manoeuvred and out-fought by, you know, a 36-year-old who's not played since the end of February. And, you know, I just don't understand Vestergaard. Don't get it, John.
Yeah, he's very strange because you think about like today's performance as well, where he was kept on making mistakes and then kept on making kind of great recoveries. And actually, what you want is a defender who's a little bit more quiet than that. He does neither. He doesn't need to make the great recoveries because he hasn't made the mistake in the first place. Just kind of quietly gets on with things.
But if you look at like Van Dijk, to talk about Van Dijk doesn't make great recoveries because Van Dijk doesn't make any mistakes. And you're right. I mean, like today, we'll talk about today, but like just whilst we're on this Vestergaard moment, yeah, there was a great block that Vestergaard did, I think, against Callum Wilson, you know, when it was 1-0. But Vestergaard has to make that block because Vestergaard kind of screws up the clearance. It's all so strange with him. Like I think obviously it's just a move. You know, we spent, by Saints terms, big money on him. It's just not worked, has it, at all? And I think he's just not where we need him to be. You know, at that level, is he?
He is not Premier League level centre back in my eyes. Although, I mean, one thing he has, which we learned in that game against Brighton, is he can kick a football about 100 miles an hour.
I thought he broke the sound barrier when he hit it.
Yeah.
I swear I heard a sonic boom.
It was ridiculous, wasn't it? I mean, I didn't even know, like, because Ryan got a touch to it, right? The Brighton goalkeeper.
Yeah, it was an amazing save.
But how was that even possible? Like, why does his hand just not implode?
Or burst into flames or something.
Yeah. Or, you know, come away with, like...
Yeah.
I mean, Vestergaard hit that bloody hard.
I think we've seen Vestergaard take a couple of free kicks, haven't we, where he really walloped it. But he's such an odd footballer. He doesn't really look like a footballer. He looks like a sort of like I thought today when I was watching him, he looks like a kind of foreign exchange student that is like slightly bigger and older than everyone else and asked to play a game that he's never played before. So like you know, you can imagine like a foreign exchange student coming over here and being like, what's this game? And they're like, oh, it's cricket. I'm like, I've never played cricket before. Can I join in? Like, yeah, and then just doing loads of really crazy stuff and occasionally looking brilliant at it. Like, he's just such an odd beast. And, you know, if the rumours are true, you know, this is his last season at Saints. I don't think that would be a bad thing.
No. So I mean, are the rumours that he's going to Leicester, though, for like over 20 million quid? I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me, Tom. I mean, and those rumours seem to have died down a bit recently. So I don't know if that's kind of like a, you know, pre-COVID, they were feeling a bit flush. Perhaps their owners had lost a bit of money.
Well, they've got two very. I mean, they've got the Turkish bloke, and they can say whatever his name. They're sent back and
is
probably
he
the
the one who
League.
looks like kind of like a Prince Charming sort of character from a Disney Pixar film?
Yeah, he looks a bit like a sort of like Middle Ages type.
Is that
Cringe? They're Soonji, yeah. And then they've got the Premier League's most underrated centre back, Johnny Evans.
Yeah.
The centre back that Man United should never have sold. And you know, you imagine Vestergaard will probably do the sort of Wes Morgan off the bench job for them. But you almost feel a tiny bit sorry for him.
Yeah. You know where I think Vestergaard would look good? I think kind of like in a team where they absolutely dominate all of the play and possession for a long, long period of time. You said like you know, if he was playing for Bayern Munich, where he's not really called into action that often, but the ball does sometimes, you know, come back to him and he gets a chance to kind of maraud forward a little bit, and there's not really any consequences to what he does because you're Bayern Munich and you're going to win every game anyway. that's kind of where I think Vestergaard would look like a decent player. But I think for Saints, where we do commit players forward on the high press, we need our centre backs to be switched on, because they are going to have to do some some last ditch stuff. And that's why Bednarek has been so good and so loved under Ralph. I think is because he's so good at doing that last ditch stuff, those kind of like last minute recoveries and blocks and sliding tackles, which I think this is the tackle that you were talking about earlier, Tom, where Bednarek makes one of the best sliding tackles I've ever seen and gets yellow carded for it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think we really miss Ben. We miss Bednarek. We miss Steven. I mean, what's worrying is obviously there's no one in I thought this today when I was watching kind of Vestergaard sort of slam into people on a halfway line and just sort of generally take people out, and you're like, well, we just obviously don't have anyone else, do we? We just obviously, what was the alternative? If Vestergaard got sent off today or pulls a hamstring or whatever, who's going to play at centre back? I guess you'd be looking at moving Bertrand into centre back, and I don't know, you move Romeo maybe. But neither of those are optimal, are they?
I mean, you have Kevin Danso on the bench, who we've not seen for a fair while.
Yeah. But, I mean, obviously, he has no future at Saints.
No.
Very strange beast, Vestergaard. I mean, I don't really... I feel bad that you don't want to kind of single out Saints players and say, what I would always say in our WhatsApp groups, I probably wouldn't want to tweet about people because it's not very nice. But... you just feel he needs to move on.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk about some of the other things that happened in the Brighton game. So, obviously, we conceded to Mope. We had a dreadful first half. I think Ralph said it was a disaster. We said it was like bad old Saints. Second half, Carl Walker-Peters comes on, slips into that right-back position. Adams also comes on for Obafemi. And it's Romeo who goes out of the midfield, and Pierre Moihoibe kind of goes up into that position, which that's kind of like, it feels like the right thing to do, doesn't it? You don't need Romeo against Brighton at home. You just don't need him kind of like breaking up the play like that.
No, well, particularly not when you're losing.
Yeah, and
when you're losing, you don't. And I thought the changes that Ralph made were really positive.
But Tom, can I ask you a question? How can you be a game changer?
Right,
how can you change a game by bringing on a right back? Which is what happened, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's so much. This is the amazing thing about Walker-Peters. Like, I think I said to you earlier, John. He's like in terms of skills. Like, watch him get out of sticky situations. In terms of skills, he's like a Nathan Redmond. Yeah, he's clearly was a winger that's been converted into a fullback. He beats people like without even thinking about it, and he just gives us so much more. I think if you think about it, we had nothing from right back in that game until Walker-Peters came on. So we're almost playing with 10 men, really. I mean, it's a bit melodramatic, but in terms of creativity, and I think he's just got this kind of, he frees up Armstrong to be a better player, and when Armstrong's a better player, so is Danny Ings, so is Nathan Redmond, and so is James Ward-Prowse, and that that's what he does. He obviously gives Saints the confidence to go forward, and also he just gives you on the overlap, he beats people, he goes past people. It's funny, isn't it? Because he's one of the it was one of those signings for Saints that were perhaps a little bit underwhelming, in terms of we knew we needed a right back, we knew we needed a first team right back. We got this bloke that sort of floated around the first team for 2 or 3 years, never really played many games. And then you look at Spurs, and Spurs have got Mendy at right back, Aurier at right back, who is a real liability, isn't it? I always find as a footballer, he makes crazy decisions, does some insane things. And then you look at Saints, and now Saints have got the backup player from a team like Spurs, who actually looks to be twice the footballer than the player that's been keeping him out of the Spurs team. But I think he's obviously just had such a massive impact at Saints, and I think he's the kind of missing piece of the puzzle.
Well, you know what I think, like Carl Walker-Peters does is he gives a bit of freedom to whoever's on the right wing. So, I mean, I think we might want to talk about Armstrong's movement, but we had Smallbone on the pitch in this game, at least till the 78th minute. Then Armstrong came on for Smallbone. But Kyle Walker-Peters is so capable in that right back position. He defends better than either Cedric or Valerie. He's good going forward. He's tricky. He can get himself out of like those really awkward situations. And we're starting to see whoever's on the right wing, whether that's Armstrong or Smallbone, moving inside a lot more and kind of like slipping into that sort of number 10 position from the wing. It's going, suddenly you have like an extra forward player in the middle, and you can kind of overload the kind of centre of the pitch with attackers. And I think that's what he did in this game against Brighton. I think that's why suddenly it all changed. But also he was creative going forward. He was really energetic. He was probably my man of the match. And
he's also a hell of a defender.
Yeah. I mean, he wins headers at the back post, which is something that, it's just such joy to have from a right back that can do that. And he's not tall.
No, I think he's about my height, isn't he? About like 5'6" or something.
Yeah,
if he's about my height. I mean, he's a brilliant defender. It's just, we're talking about £10 million, which would appear to be an absolute bargain.
Yeah, I think you've got to take him up on that. I hope Tottenham haven't really been paying that much attention to what's been going on, because otherwise, you're right, they might think he should come in instead of Serge Aurier. But he's been absolutely brilliant. Second half against Brighton, we were just so much better. I think we had 15 shots at Brighton's goal in the second half. Absolutely battered them. We had 21 shots in total in the game. Loads and loads of chances, and you're just kind of like looking at this. I think Redmond missed a couple again, and you're just waiting for one to kind of go to Danny Ings. And when that through ball went forward from Redmond to Danny Ings, you just knew he was going to score. He looks so cool on it, doesn't he? When he picks up the ball and he's heading towards goal like that, you just know it's going to happen. It's too easy for him.
Well, it was a really good pass by Redmond. We got lucky because I think that Lamptey, the right back, he looks a really good player. A really, really good player. Just misjudges the flight of the ball, doesn't he? Ever so slightly, which sets things off. But you're absolutely right. He has this kind of ice cold confidence, doesn't he? That you just know he's going to score. He obviously does as well. A bit like a bit of a wild comparison. But do you remember when Michael Owen burst onto the scene and he would score one-on-ones every time he was put through?
Oh yeah.
Like, he just was so good at scoring chances one-on-one. And with Redmond, you just know he's gonna find the net. And I think also there's pressure there, because it is, he's the main man, isn't it? I mean, what's he on now? 21 goals. The closest player's probably on like 5 or 6 maybe for Saints. Or Armstrong on 5, or Prowsmith on 5. Redmond on 5.
Yeah,
he's shouldering the burden, but he seems to relish it.
Yeah, he looks like he's just really enjoying life at the moment. But I know what you say about him shouldering the burden, but I mean, he gets so many goals, but you don't feel like Saints are nothing without him, but they are so much more with him. Do you know what I mean? We're kind of like, Ralph is building a good team with one incredible player, at the sharp end of that team, who's just doing incredible things. I mean, his goal against Bournemouth today, I thought was fantastic. I mean, we did discover today the one thing that Danny Ings can't do. I mean, he can defend, he can tackle, he can run all day long, he can finish. I think he's up there as being the best English finisher since in-form Harry Kane from a couple of seasons ago at the moment. It's so good. I just love him, Tom. I love Danny Ings. I'm declaring that now. Daniel Ings, I love you. You're wonderful.
Well, but you're right, John. He seems to be loving life at Saints. He's obviously got this fantastic relationship with Ralph. The team is built up in a way that plays to his strengths, and he's just scoring all sorts of goals. And one-on-ones, headers. He's now scoring from outside the box, which before this season he'd never scored an outside the box goal in the Premier League. It was a great finish. It was no more, no less than Saints deserve. And I think the Brighton game was interesting because Saints just looked quite tired, didn't they? I think they looked a bit leggy.
They did, and I wasn't too disappointed to come away with a draw. I think we should have probably taken 3 points from that game, but kind of like we said before, we didn't have loads to play for. I think the first half we did look tired and leggy. Looked much better in the second half.
And Brighton had something to play for, didn't they?
Yeah, and Brighton pretty much.
They've got something to play for.
Yeah, they pretty much secured their safety with that draw against us. Which brings us on to today's game against Bournemouth. So the inverted commas of South Coast derby. It's definitely not really a derby. Bournemouth obviously revelled in their victory at St Mary's earlier in the season, 3-1, which they celebrated like they totally dominated us, and I was a bit frustrated with this game because I thought Saints actually we didn't play very well at the start of the season, and I thought the game against Bournemouth was one of the games that we played better in, and I actually think a draw would have been a fairer result in that game than the 3-1 that Bournemouth got, but they got the victory. They really rubbed our noses on it. They told us that we wouldn't challenge their position. They kind of told us that we were going down, they're going to stay up, all of this stuff. Really building up. I still didn't really want Bournemouth to get relegated.
No, I don't want them to go down.
No, I kind of quite like having them up here, but they certainly they're trying to create a rivalry with Saints because let's face it, Poole FC are probably not going to be decent rivals for Bournemouth for some years. And we have another game which I suppose, Tom, we spoke to Carl Anker about his experience of going to a game as a journalist in lockdown. I suppose you almost got the closest to what it's like to be a fan going to the stadium with the Beatty fan zone. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I got to watch the game, which is great. It's weird though because you have to obviously show passion and stuff when your team scores or if they concede, and that's not a very English thing to do, is it? When you're just at home, it's not what we do. We're very sort of stiff upper lip and all that. But
did you also have to wear a replica shirt as well, Tom?
I did. You know what I wore? I wore the Sanderson kit.
Oh yeah,
the Pony Sanderson kit, which I think is made of polyester. It can't have been what the players wore. I refuse to believe the players wore this same kit because, my God, it makes you so hot, so sweaty. I just can't believe that they put this on an athlete ever. I'm hoping they gave him something else. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was interesting game today, John.
Yeah, and what I found quite interesting is that you were about a minute ahead of me, weren't you? So I was watching through the usual BT Sport method, but I think, and I guess that was, in case you celebrated or commiserated in a Saints goal or concession in a way that would not be savoury for us viewers at home.
Yeah, no, we were on strict orders.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting game. It was quite end-to-end, I thought, for most of the first half. Both sides were getting chances. Vestergaard was doing strange things, but, we've already talked about Vestergaard.
He took someone out, didn't he? That was quite good on the halfway. Like we just slalomed through the back of someone.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite funny, wasn't it? But, it was down to that man again, Danny Ings, wasn't it?
Yeah, and nice. Really well worked goal from Saints. Saints hadn't really kind of put their mark on the game before that point, had they? They'd kind of, I think, been maybe a little bit overawed by this sort of energy and sort of throwing themselves around and physicality maybe of Bournemouth, particularly up front with Wilson, who has a bit of a good record against Saints. But it's just a very nicely worked goal. It came down the right from Walker Peters into, and then I think Ward-Prowse kind of fizzed the ball across to Redmond. Lovely little layoff. And Danny Ings, it's funny because Danny Ings has done something today with his goal that he told everyone he was going to do more of after the Watford game, John. And do you remember the goal he scored against Watford was quite similar? And in terms of he passed passes far corner. And after the game, I think in the post-match interview, being interviewed, he said, it's something I like to do is to drop off the shoulder and then it low into that corner. But obviously, he's not. There's one thing Danny's telling everyone what he's going to do. There's a whole other thing of the world trying to stop him once he starts doing it. And it was a brilliant finish. And I think we needed it, didn't we? Because we didn't really make a mark on the game.
We did seem to be kind of like lacking that cutting edge at that point. And it's funny you say it's like a nice layout from Nathan Redmond, but he still had everything to do, didn't he, Danny Ings? There were lots of defenders around him. You'd have almost sensed he might kind of go towards goal, but he almost doesn't. He almost kind of goes a little bit away from goal, but across goal, just to find that little channel that he wants to hit it down, which is, to sway it then down into that kind of bottom corner. And he doesn't even look at the goal when he does it. He just knows instinctively where it is and just puts it in. And I mean, it's just another really good Danny Ings goal where there wasn't an awful lot. It was a good attack, but there wasn't a clear-cut chance there, and he's made himself a chance which he can score from. And that's kind of like why I think he's getting a lot of comparisons to the Harry Kane of 2 seasons ago at the moment, because Harry Kane was scoring a lot of those goals where you don't really think there's a chance on, but he somehow shoots and scores. And Danny Ings he's done that against Norwich, he's done that against Watford, he's done it again now against Bournemouth. And you could see Bournemouth were gutted, weren't they? Because it would have probably have been fair for us to go in at half time at 0-0.
I mean, I think it kind of took the wind out of their sails, didn't they? Because they probably surprised themselves by how well they played, and also they played in a way that exploits Saints' weakness, which is, they had lots of fast early crosses, didn't they, into the sort of danger area. Was it Cook and Wilson, the two sort of big forwards for Bournemouth today? And that's the strange thing, isn't it? Obviously, we spoke about Vestergaard, who's 6 or 7, obviously comfortable in the air. Stevens has never been particularly comfortable in the air, I don't think, for a centre back, and also isn't a particularly physical centre back. So that was the game plan. Get it up, pump it up the ball, Tony Pulis style, as fast and as early as you can. And I think Danny Ings' goal, as well taken as it was, just kind of showed that's the difference, isn't it? A player of that quality just needs one moment, really, kind of to turn the game. And also just before half time, great goal, great time to score it. And I think that's a really important goal.
Yeah, I think it was, and I think after half time we were much better in the second half. We were stronger. We kind of kept on surging forward. We forced Aaron Ramsdale into making lots and lots of saves, including one from a Danny Ings penalty, which was a dreadful penalty, I'm afraid to say. And we've learnt what Danny Ings can't do. Because it's weird, isn't it? You see those stats like Danny Ings has scored the most goals from if you take out penalties, and you think, well, James Ward-Prowse has missed a penalty. We won't score any of the penalties we get, it seems. So why not let Danny Ings take it? And then I think
I felt more comfortable when I saw Danny Ings take charge and stroll up with. I thought that's it. He's going to score.
Yeah.
But there's no way he will miss. Funny that the stat I was going to mention to you earlier, John, is something that Ralph said apparently after the game. I don't know if it might have been in the press conference. Was that penalties it's something like this, that penalties that are given after long VAR deliberations, 55% of those penalties are missed.
More than half. I mean, that's pretty astonishing stat if that's correct.
So long VAR, which it was, wasn't it? Because we were watching it, and it was like that we had a corner, the Saints players all appealed, and I always think that's the sign, isn't it, that there's definitely something in it, is when all the players appeal. Like the classic example of that was Decore's handball against Saints a few years ago, which obviously we're never going to get over, John. But every Saints player to a man appealed that, which says there's definitely, to me, suggests that's the handball. But it was a handball, and it was caught really well by fair play to VAR for picking it up, and which is because I don't know what the number of penalties, the percentage of penalties scored, normal penalties scored, but I bet it's like 80%. You'd imagine.
Yeah, apart from for Saints and Man City, it seems.
Well, yeah, Saints, or only Saints in recent years, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, it was a really poor penalty, and I think it was almost like because he went to give the keeper the eyes, didn't he, and then got it all wrong.
Yeah, well, the keeper dived to his left, and Danny Ings still hit it to his left, which kind of that defeats the point of doing a dummy penalty. You're supposed to then change the way you shoot based on which way you think the keeper's going. Otherwise, you might as well just smash it in.
I'm a big fan of the Troy Deeney penalty where he just hit it as hard as you possibly can.
Yeah, well, James Beatty was a bit like that, wasn't he? He used to kind of like walk away from the ball, just run up and just smash it into the top corner. And,
did James Beatty have a sort of weird walk back with his back to the goalkeeper, turn quickly,
and just smash it in?
But he had like a weird run up, didn't he? Where his knees seemed to go quite high. If any of the younger fans listening want to see that sort of quite strange penalty technique with James Beatty, but it worked for Beatty.
Yeah, so James Beatty's penalty record, 17 taken, 16 scored. So you're talking about 94% conversion ratio. I mean, Matt Letizia, I think he had 43 penalties out of 44 or 42 out of 43.
Who saved the one, John?
Was it Besant?
No, Mark Crossley.
Mark Crossley, that's right. And then Ricky Lambert, what was his penalty record? I mean, that must have been 100% for Saints, wasn't it?
It was 100%. I think Ricky Lambert scored 32 penalties for Saints. I think I read this week. There was an interesting Guardian, the knowledge on the Guardian, by the way, they do this, where they answer questions. And there was Sergio Ramos who scored 23 penalties in a row, and someone said, is that the best penalty streak that anyone's ever had? And I think that actually worked out that perhaps it is Ricky Lambert, because Ricky Lambert scored 32 for Saints, and he scored the 5 he'd taken before that.
Yeah.
Only scored 5 before that, so he scored like 37 or
apparently scored 34 for Southampton.
Yeah.
And then he missed a penalty, I think, against Milan.
Did he?
For Liverpool. Let's have a look.
Oh, right. I don't remember. I was there. I don't remember playing. But yeah. We just, it's weird because Ward-Prowse is an interesting one, because you think if the guy can put the ball on a postage stamp from about 50 yards.
It was only a friendly, where Ricky Lambert's penalty was saved.
I
don't even count that. That's not real football.
Otherwise, Shay Adams would be like our top goal scorer.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Tom, you're going to make another point there.
Well, no, it's just obviously taking penalties is harder than it looks, isn't it? Obviously, but Bertrand takes a good penalty.
Yeah, I think Bertrand scored penalty. I mean, I think they wanted Danny Ings to take it, didn't they? Because they wanted to give him a chance of getting a golden boot, and probably that's what he was thinking about too much, and not just actually focused on scoring the penalty. So I mean, then we have Bournemouth actually get their goal in the last minute. So Tom, I think you messaged something that was quite ominous to me. It was just like, Ramsdale's making save after save. We miss a penalty, and you just say it would be so typical if Saints don't win this. And if we get a draw from this, it'd be like classic Saints. And it looked like that was the case. When I can't even remember the name of the Bournemouth player, so I'm gonna have to look this up.
Surridge.
That was it. Surridge slots it in, and you kind of look at that and you think, well, I mean, in my mind, I was kind of like, it gives them a chance. They've got a draw. Saints are only to blame. They can only blame themselves for being in that situation where you're conceding a last-minute equaliser. And then you see the referee kind of like, oh, there's a VAR check going on, and I think it's Wilson who's offside. And you think, that's gutting for Bournemouth. It really is. And then we kind of go up the other end. Redmond gets his 3rd assist in 3 games, putting the ball across to Che Adams, who again, it wasn't a really simple finish, but he has to do a little bit of work, and then slots it past the goalkeeper. 2-0. And that, Tom, that 98th minute goal was the latest Premier League goal since 2012.
Good knowledge, that, John. I mean, lots to unpack or unpick, however the saying is. But good for VAR as well. That's exactly what VAR said to do, isn't it? Because there's no way Saints would have got the penalty today, which was a penalty, and there's no way that goal would have been disallowed which it should have been. Strict rules of the game. It should have been disallowed. I think because Callum Wilson was challenged McCarthy for the ball in the immediate aftermath.
Yeah.
Or something. Is that right? So the right decision, but we wouldn't have got it. And VAR has been our friend this season. I think broadly Saints have benefited. I think
it's because all the Premier League referees
well.
don't like us.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I think one of the things Saints do play is they play a very tight offside trap, don't they? So therefore, it probably benefits us in that way. And also, you just got to have, it does kind of equalise. It should equalise between the big teams that did get the decisions. It should do. But it was a good finish from Adams. I'm really excited about Adams for next year because I think he does appear to be the stronger, doesn't he? If you think it's really about, we know we're going to play two up front. We know one of those is going to be Danny Ings. So it's now between Shane Long, Obafemi, and Adams to own that second spot. And it would appear that Adams is the sort of becoming the number one choice.
He's getting there, isn't he? I think Shane Long is still the first choice to partner Danny Ings at the moment, but Che Adams is getting there. It was kind of quite weird, and I wonder if this is about the type of goal that he scored, but I think Che Adams was more pleased with this goal than he was with the one against Man City. And I think I felt like kind of the one against Man City was so atypical. It's a lob from miles away that perhaps that's not the sort of goal that he scores. He almost seemed a bit embarrassed by how everyone was so excited about him scoring it. Whereas I think this time he felt like, yes, finally, that's a proper striker's goal. A goal in the box where I've beaten a defender and I've put it past the keeper.
Well, I think it's two things, John. I think he was probably flabbergasted by the Man City goal.
Yeah.
So, he doesn't really, you can't comprehend what you've just done. And I think the other thing is, and obviously this is like a massive cold psychology on my part that has no basis in fact or knowledge of anything. You can imagine, you don't want to be a player that is like a pub quiz answer. So name the player that signed for Southampton for £15 million, only scored one goal, which was a 45-yard world-class goal against Man City, and then never scored again. Whereas now, because he's done a boring goal,
yeah,
he's now, the hardest thing was scoring the first goal, but then you don't want to be known as a one-goal striker. So maybe he's kind of cast that aside now, and now he's just going to go on some mental run when we start next season.
So here's to more boring goals from Che Adams.
Yeah.
So I mean, Tom,
I think he'll start when he against Sheffield United.
Yeah, I think he's got to. You've enjoyed some of the stats. Here's one: Southampton second best away record this season in the Premier League. Only Liverpool have got more points away from home with that kind of victory against Bournemouth. Obviously, there's other games to be played and less rest of the season. And I think this must be the first time since we've been doing the podcast, which was back when Claude Puel was manager, when we started doing the Saints FC podcast, that we've had 6 games undefeated. 7 undefeated? No, 7 undefeated.
6 undefeated this season.
3 wins and 3 draws. I mean, that's pretty bloody good, isn't it, Tom? I mean, I'd settle for that.
Yeah. And there's lots to be excited about. I think you're exactly right. I think the amount, even it's the most boring stuff, but the things that obviously matter, Saints players covering, I think, more ground than anyone else in the Premier League. They're kind of these mundane things. Obviously, what's exciting about Ralph is he clearly has a philosophy, and the players are buying into it. And obviously, he doesn't want players that aren't going to buy into it. That's good. Get him out. He like you say, 6 games unbeaten. We go into a free swing at a home game. If I look tomorrow, we can finish 11th. You remember that after that Everton game earlier this season, John? There's no way you'd have thought that team would finish 11th.
No, absolutely.
You snap the hand off for 17th.
Yeah, I was terrified at that point. I thought, oh God, here we go again. I thought Ralph was going to be a different sort of manager. And there we were kind of staring down the barrel of another relegation battle. Tom, we've been talking for quite a little time now. I've got two more things that we need to do. One is we need to ask people for their nominations for our end of season awards. I'm going to go through what we gave out last season as a bit of a reminder. But also want to do a listener email. Saints GT Gordon, he's been in contact again. He says, "Hi guys, how good is the way that we're playing? So positive, the belief that we can win games, and so good to see us chase games for 90 minutes, something that we haven't done so well in the past. I think we're really seeing the development of the team under Ralph. Saints fans are ever hopeful, but I think, with some good player management through the close season, there's a real chance Saints could be a top 10 next season. What do you think about that?"
Well, if you look, we're 11th now, right? And Everton tomorrow have to go away to Sheffield United. That's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, Saints are 2 goals to the good, 2 points to the good on Everton, who are in the one place below us. So, if Everton lose tomorrow, which, let's face it, is not unrealistic, the Saints will be 3 points ahead of them with the same goal difference. And that means, we can finish in 11th. Comfortably if we beat Sheffield United at home, which we can do. I think form and us being at home and Sheffield United obviously now probably won't qualify for Europe, but it's really fun. I think Ralph will be saying top 10. I think that'll be the target. But you look at this season, you've got Sheffield United in 8th, Burnley in 9th. There's no reason why we couldn't push top 8 again.
Yeah,
keeping fit.
I feel Ralph is definitely the sort of manager who wants us to push for Europe, and I think that's what he thinks that we can achieve. So absolutely, like, why not? I think that's going to be a stretch target, isn't it? Top 7, top 8. Pushing for Europa League qualification. I think 10th you'd be happy with, and I think next season, you want to see us improve on either the 12th or the 11th that we're going to get this season. You want next season to be better, and I think that's good progress, isn't it? Yeah, good cup run. Looking at Ralph's history, he doesn't do great cup runs apparently, but that'd be interesting. We've had
also it's about it's about bringing those young players through. So we want to see more of Smallbone, we want to see more of Vokins. We're going to try and work out what kind of footballer Obafemi actually is. He's a real unusual player, I think, for Saints. If we can bring in 2 or 3 young players as well next season, then Saints fans should be happy with that.
Yeah. I think we will be. I think everyone's happy. We've had quite a few emails. I'm not going to read them all. We had 2 from Hong Kong, actually. So we had Dan a few weeks ago. So I'm going to read out part of Dean's email. And he's written a really long, interesting email. But one of the things that he picks up on is, the post-goal celebrations, the way the players kind of have this camaraderie. And he thinks there's a visible camaraderie in the team which hasn't been there before. He says he can sense the solidarity, the purpose, the organisation, the focus, and the belief. I think Dean's onto something there. He's right. Ralph has got these players playing for each other, and that's how he beat teams like Manchester City and get last-minute equalisers against teams like Manchester United, and sticking together, playing well. All these games has come from a team playing really well together as a team.
Yeah, and John, don't forget. Yeah, you're right. Drawing Man United, beating Man City, also winning away at Leicester, winning at home against Tottenham, winning away at Chelsea.
Yeah,
all really, really good results. And I think in a fair, obviously. Klopp will probably win Manager of the Year because they always give it to the person who wins the league, no matter what the resource is or who they're up against. You'd argue that Chris Wilder should win it, but I think if you have to pick a third choice, obviously we're heavily biased, but surely Hasenhuttl. Saints were garbage. When was that? When was the Everton game? Was that late? That was November, wasn't it, John? You think we were terrible until November? And what are we now in the form table for the league? What, 5th since the Leicester game or something?
Yeah.
4th since the Leicester game? It's a tremendous turnaround. And, you'd think that if they gave these things out in rankings, I'd argue that Ralph deserves probably 3rd spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say the kind of other shout would be Nuno Espirito Santo from Wolves. I think has been a fantastic manager as well.
True, and also probably if we get off our Saints blinkers, Sean Dyche has done an amazing job.
He has done another really, really impressive job with Burnley.
An amazing job.
So, Tom, I think you're kind of getting into the realm of awards here. So let's move on to our kind of final segment of the show. I want our listeners to write in with their nominations for this season's awards, okay? So the categories that we had last season were Player of the Season, Young Player of the Season, Goal of the Season, Hero of the Season, Villain of the Season, Most Improved Player, Best Chant / Song of the Year, Iconic Moment, and Cult Hero. So there's a few things for you to get your teeth into. Last season we gave Player of the Year to Nathan Redmond. I think
this last year that made total sense.
Yeah, he was really good last season. Young Player of the Season we gave to Jan Valery. Goal of the Season we gave to James Ward-Prowse.
Which goal was that, John?
This is
the free kick at Man United.
It could be.
Or it could have been the free kick against Spurs.
Yeah. I haven't actually written down which goal it was, but it was one of those. Hero of the Season was King Ralph.
Naturally.
Villain of the Season was Wesley.
Oh, Wesley Hoyt, really?
Yeah. Most Improved Player was Nathan Redmond as well. Best Chant Song, I don't think we had. We decided not to award it to anything. Iconic Moment we gave to James Ward-Prowse and his battle with Wilfried Zaha.
Yes, great with the tongue out. Like that, John.
Yeah, and Cult Hero we gave to Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. So there we go. So that was last season's awards. So do write in saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us at saintsfcpodcast on Twitter. You can also comment in the YouTube comments if that's how you listen to it as well. I will try and pick up those before the next episode. But the next episode we'll only have one game to talk about, but obviously we'll have the whole season to reflect on as well, Tom, which I think will probably be our last episode of the season. And I was going to say, we can look forward to a long break until next season. But actually, we're in late July, so it's going to come around pretty quickly.
Is it September? Is it, John?
I actually don't know, Tom. I don't think we're going to have much of a break before we'll be back. So do get your nominations for the end of season awards. If you think there's a category that we're missing, of course, you are welcome to put in your own suggestions into that. I'll see if I can speak to some of our previous guests as well, see if we can get kind of Carl Anker's nominations, Professor Simon Kemp, some of the others who've appeared on the show over the course of the season as well. But yeah, I think it's been a good season so far. I'm looking forward to the final game against Sheffield United next Sunday, Tom, and then us wrapping things up.
And I'm guessing that game's not going to be on TV, is it, John? Because there's nothing to play for both teams.
There'll be some way of watching that game, I'm sure, Tom. I'm sure we'll be able to figure it out. All right. Anyway, so thank you very much for sticking with us. It's been a long episode, but there's not been a single loss and 4 games to talk about. Do have a think about what your nominations are for the end of the season. Tom, thank you very much for taking some time out of your weekend to come and speak to me.
No, thank you for having me, John.
Yeah, and
you.
I think Caroline wrote in last week to say that she absolutely loved hearing the sound of the fans kind of leading us out of the podcast. So here they are. Goodbye, everyone. Have a nice little listen to these real Saints fans and not the kind of piped in noise, and we'll see you or hear you. I don't know. We'll talk to you next week about the Saints.